Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Beta! Beta male! Amazing.
There's some whores in this house.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Around the nation. Waldorf Nation, dear Waldorf here with you. It's Friday. Hey, it's the end of the week. But don't worry, we have a fantastic show to kind of round out the rest of the week here. And send us off into the weekend. So obviously we're going to have a mix of insane conservatives, of course, including Mike Pillow. Of course, we got Pillow Talk today. Don't you all love that? That's fun. We got Republicans. We found the fraud. We found the fraud. Turns out it's Republicans. We got Candace Owens versus Australia. Any Aussies in the crowd, you're going to love this, who are watching. We also are going to talk about Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz. A little bit of trouble. We got finally another police story. Profiling. So, is that a sweater or a jacket? Kind of both. Both. No, the real fraud are the friends we didn't make along the way. Oh, I was going to say that. Good stuff. Good stuff, as always. So, we're going to have a fun show. Please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. I appreciate that. Every share helps. It really, really does. So thank you so much. And, for doing that, of course, you can also, since we're also on Twitch, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. On Twitch, you can help us by donating subs. Or I should say donating bits. You can gift subs to other people. You can sign up using Amazon Prime. Again, a little bit of that goes a really, really long way to help a small channel like myself. Appreciate that. Paratyran says, it took me 2 shots to get vaccinated. Now I just have to eat a salad. Damn, I'm so foolish. Well, to be honest, I actually prefer getting the shot to eating the salad. That's just me, personally. I'm not a salad kind of guy. So, I guess, whatever helps. As long as you're vaccinated, I guess. Just a nice little throwback to the story of Michael Flynn with his nonsense conspiracies, just like all the rest of the right wing that have lost their minds. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the super chats as well, and thank you to all of you who are giving on super chat. That's another great way to help the show. Like, subscribe, super chats, do all the other stuff on Twitch as well that I talked about. Hey, I'm Christina. Good to see you in the chat. I'm Christina. Go follow her. Of course, she's a Twitch streamer as well, and she's building up her channel, doing cosplays and as well as politics. So enjoy that stuff. Definitely check out her stream. And happy Friday to all of you. It's nice. It's nice to have a, to be real close to the weekend. We're just about there. So let's do it. Let's jump in to the stories. All right. Mike Pillow has another prediction, which means it's time for Pillow Talk.
God gave me this platform. I already know I'm going to win. China did our vote. Biden and Harris would say, hey, we're here to protect the country, and resign. Mike Lindell's a conspiracy. But you haven't. Just forget about the evidence. This was attacked.
All right. My Pillow CEO, Mike Lindell, you might have noticed that he's making a lot of predictions. I mean, he's been making a lot of predictions for some time about voter fraud, mass voter fraud in all 50 states, every single place, lots and lots of fraud, even in the states that Donald Trump had won. Oh, interesting. So now he's also been saying that, don't worry, by Thanksgiving, Donald Trump will be reinstated. Even though, of course, there's no constitutional way to do that. And so some of his latest predictions are like, actually, no, not by Thanksgiving. We're going to present it by Thanksgiving. In fact, here's what he said recently on a podcast about that whole thing. Take a look.
This is different now than before. That when we get there, we're launching it 2 days before Thanksgiving. You know why? So that the whole world's going to be watching. Now, are they going to accept it that day? No. But guess who's going to talk about it for 4 days over Thanksgiving? Every person in the world, not our country. Everybody's watching for this. Those 9 Supreme Court justices, they're going to sit back and go, are we going to accept this? They're there to protect our country. They've lived the American dream. They see it was attacked by a foreign country. They're going to say, bring it on in, 9-0 to look at
it. Everybody in the world. Everybody's going to be looking at it. And not just in the United States. No. Kim Jong-un. He's going to tune in. He's tuning in. Unbelievable. You also, what are you going to have the Queen? The Queen's going to tune in, of course. She's going to want to watch Mike Pillow. She's 95 years old. Definitely going to tune in. Who wouldn't want to watch this? Come on. We're gonna watch the Supreme Court. So say, oh yeah, well, bring him in. Yeah, bring in the evidence. What evidence? There is none. This is insane. Delusional. Absolutely delusional. Look, it's actually important to note that the Supreme Court already looked at voter fraud cases. Donald Trump had sued and tried to bring this to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, sorry, but you don't have any standing. You just don't. And you also need to prove that there are damages against you or injury. And of course, there are other cases where Trump supporters have sued states and have been blocked as well. Because again, you don't have standing, you can't prove injury, you don't have a case. And you also have to have evidence to prove that what you're saying is true. They don't have any of that. None. Nothing that we have seen from Mike Pillow, even through his little cyber symposium back in August, suggests that he hasn't even a shred of evidence. Just nothing. And again, you go recount after recount, audit after audit. Even the company that was paid specifically to find something fraud in Arizona, the cyber ninjas, they failed to find any fraud. Like, and now MAGA is really, really mad at them for failing to manufacture the evidence that they needed, in order to try to prove their insane conspiracies. In fact, they even found more votes for Biden. Great expense to the taxpayer. So this is the problem, okay? And by the way, speaking of expenses, these audits do cost money. The money doesn't come out of nowhere. And so they've been spending all this money and spending all this time. And here we are, we're at the end of October. And he's still talking about, oh, we're going to bring it into Thanksgiving. And that's what, and then the Supreme Court is going to do a 9-0 to let us look at it. No, they're not. No, they're going to get laughed out of court. That's what's going to happen. Time to let it go. Guys, Trump supporters, MAGA, you're obsessed. Let it go. And that, by the way, that obsession is unsustainable. So there's a couple of ways that this is going to continue, that this entire voter fraud line. And by the way, I've talked about how, there's polling and stuff that suggests that a lot of Trump supporters now hold the idea that Donald Trump had the election stolen from him as part of their personal identity of being a conservative. Okay, so they say, we're conservative. Part of being a conservative means believing in the big lie. It's part of their identity now. No matter how much facts and evidence that you show them that runs counter to their narrative, they are never, ever, ever going to believe it. Ever. And so there's a couple of ways that this is going to continue. For one, Republicans are going to continue to audit and question every election that they lose till the end of time. Except for when they win. If they win, everything's fine, above board. Totally fair. But if they lose, nope, 100%, they're going to be like, voter fraud. It was voter fraud. Had to have been voter fraud. They cheated. We're going to have to spend a ton of money on doing audits and recounts, etc. And by the way, while they're doing that and distracting everybody, the Republican politicians that are already in power in the states are going to continue to do more and more voter suppression. And so that's pretty much the real danger, right? Now, the second thing that may happen and might already be happening is that, and this would be ironic, Republican voters will just be like, well, no, I guess I'm not going to vote. I mean, why vote if it's rigged? If it's all rigged and it's all going to be stolen anyway, then why am I going to vote? Now, you would think, okay, good, right? Now, the problem with that is they're going to end up, instead of voting, resorting to more extreme measures. And that's where you have the talk of potential violence and intimidation and things like that. And so that's the problem, okay? And by the way, Donald Trump is leading that effort to get people to not vote. In fact, earlier this month, he put out a statement saying this, quote, "If we don't solve the presidential election fraud of 2020, which we have thoroughly and conclusively documented," really? Where? We haven't seen it. Where is it? It's nothing. It's nothing. Laughed out of court every single time. But he says Republicans will not be voting in 22 or in 24. It is the single most important thing for Republicans to do. Okay, so great. That's what he says. Just don't vote. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I showed you the video where she's like, no, don't do that. Vote, please, for God's sakes, vote. Everybody come vote, as long as it keeps me in power. So there's a contradictory thing. And by the way, she talked about a poll, I think it was 4% of Georgia voters said, we're not going to vote in the upcoming midterms. And of course, we already saw what happened when Georgians didn't vote after, in the special elections, right? After the main election, after the general election, I should say. You had ended up, with two Democrats that won in Georgia in these hotly contested races. And so that's what gave Democrats control of Congress. And so, not that they've done much with it, but, or been able to, but still, they don't want the repeat of that to happen. They want to retake the House, they want to retake the Senate, and in 24, they want to, of course, retake the White House from Joe Biden. And they might have a chance if they actually can get it together. And I'm not saying that is a good thing. I'm saying that that is a warning. That means, of course, Democrats also got to get it together. All right. So, but that said, Biden, let me just say something about Biden. Disappointing. And the Democrats do have a lot of problems. And I'm not going to shy away from talking about that. They do have a lot of problems. They can't get anything done. But at the same time, we do have to note that there is at least one big distinct difference between the parties. Right now, the Democrats are not attempting to destroy democracy like Republicans are. And I'm not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. If you look at all the actions that the Republicans have been taking at the state levels, especially in order to do voter suppression, as well as gerrymandering, yeah, that is a way to crush democracy, to end democracy, so that they can, of course, win because they don't see any other legitimate ways of winning. And so, of course, they have to project, right? And understand that this is what this effort's about. It's end democracy by using the lie of massive voter fraud that doesn't exist. Now, of course, Mike Pillow, he's a clown. Everybody knows he's a clown. Nothing that he says is going to be taken seriously. And by the way, not only is he a clown, but he's also a grifter. He's also had his brain melted, long ago by with the help of the family. I don't know if you've heard of the family, but they are, I know it sounds like a mob. But no, they're a shady conservative group that was actually behind the National Prayer Breakfast that Democrats would go to. So they held a lot of power, a lot of money, have a lot of connections. And so Mike Pillow was just one of the latest people that was sucked in. And of course, he's not a smart person to begin with. So he easily fell for the lies and started doing everything that the family and these donors, or I should say this group, wanted him to do, including give them millions of dollars. And so the real danger, though, here is the actual organized efforts by politicians in power to not only, of course, make sure that they roll back voting rights and ensure that people that, vote for Democrats are not able to vote, but they also, if Democrats happen to be in power in certain places or get into power in certain places, to make sure to take power away from those positions. And so to kind of like defang their ability to do things. And so, yeah, it is something that is very, very concerning, their efforts to end democracy. And Mike Pillow, clowns like him aside, there is some real danger here. And we have to continue to fight against that voter suppression. And it would be nice if we actually got rid of the filibuster and passed some voting reforms. Oh, wait, can't do that because of Joe Manchin. And Kirsten Sinema. Okay. Let's go to more voter fraud stuff. Need to talk about how Democrats are trying to fix the problem, even if it's not perfect. Positivity is the word. Yeah, look, I totally understand that. I could definitely stand to be a little bit more positive. I'm a bit, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit of a pessimist a little bit sometimes. But I will give credit where credit is due, and for right now, I haven't really seen any efforts to fight against that mass voter suppression, at least not as fervently as we've seen. The family got him with sex and then belong. The dope just wants friends. Now, you're probably right about that. And certainly, if you look at all the the things that he was saying about, it must be divine providence and all that stuff. So it's a sign. We love your sour notes. I'm just, I'm trying not to sugarcoat things for y'all because this is pretty bad, and it is pretty dangerous, and I don't want to make sure to undersell the danger to democracy as well. So it's kind of hard to strike a balance on that. But there is hope, of course. Hope of, well, as long as we fight back. All right, let's go to fun voter fraud story. This is funny. All right. Ever since the 2020 election ended, many Republicans have been frantically searching for voter fraud. I mean, you had recounts and audits, and even Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick offered up to $1 million in a reward to be paid out from his own campaign to incentivize, encourage, and reward people to come forward and report voter fraud. So you would think, oh, wow, look at that. We've got this reward. All an American patriot has to do is to come out and say, we have found the voter fraud. Here it is. I mean, if there is mass voter fraud, like the Republicans are saying, then it should be relatively easy to find, right? Well, it turns out we found it. We found the fraud, everybody. It just so happens the fraud is coming from Trump voters, as always. All right, so, oops. Now, as Vice explains, the first person to claim Lieutenant Governor Patrick's reward is actually Eric Frank. So Eric Frank is a progressive poll worker in Pennsylvania. He found a Republican that voted twice. Oops. So now Patrick's campaign actually ended up paying Frank about $25,000 for his tip, leading to the conviction of Ralph Thurman. Ralph Thurman is a 72-year-old Republican who voted twice. Thurman, whose lawyers initially claimed he'd been tricked by poll workers into voting a second time, later admitted he'd illegally voted a second time using his son's name. Oops. Thurman was sentenced to 3 years of probation and is banned from voting until the next election. Oh, the irony. Gee, banned from voting for 4 years? That means he'll be ready to vote in 2024 for the next Republican. Shocker. Feels like they could have done a little bit more for that, you know, to really discourage people from doing the so-called mass voter fraud. But anyway, all right. So now, Frank told the Dallas Morning News on Thursday, quote, "It's my belief that they were trying to get cases of Democrats doing voter fraud, and that just wasn't the case. This just kind of blew up in their face." Yeah, of course. yeah, womp womp. Oops. All right. So now, Patrick campaign spokesperson Alan Blakemore did tell Frank that he was, so far, the first and only person to seek out the reward. But what happened to the mass voter fraud? Where is it? Where's the mass voter fraud? I thought they would be reporting all sorts of mass fraud, especially in Texas, and for reward money. What happened? Oh, right. Doesn't exist. Now, here's the other thing, right? The reward was for $1 million. Why did Frank only get paid $25,000? Why did he get cheaped out on? Seriously. Well, Blakemore said that the reward was substantially less because the campaign was looking to catch quote unquote bigger fish. Like what, for example? Now, Frank told the Morning News, was he looking for a celebrity or political group as a whole? I don't know what he meant by bigger fish. You know what they were after. Again, they were trying to find a Democratic aligned group. Like, for example, I don't know, the defunct Acorn, for example, that was shut down by Democrats, even though they did absolutely nothing wrong. They were looking for something like that. They were looking for a Project Veritas type, sting that was not really a sting at all, is just heavily edited nonsense. But that's what they were looking for. And they couldn't find it because it didn't exist. Not only that, but it sounds like a likely excuse not to pay up. But that's not all. Oh no, there is more. There is much more. In fact, a Las Vegas man named Donald Kirk Hartle is also facing charges for voting on behalf of his dead wife and then lying about it. Now, the charges come after an investigation from the Secretary of State's office, which investigates any voter fraud allegations in connection with the Nevada Attorney General's office. His wife, Rosemarie Hartle, tragically died in 2017, yet a ballot for her was issued in October and later received by the county. What happened? We should look into this. We should investigate. Well, it turns out that, yes, that ballot got sent out, got returned, and it was a vote for Trump. Both of them were votes for Trump. So now the I-Team, this is from CBS 8 News Now, their investigative team looked into this as well and even interviewed Kirk last year. He said, the ballot never came to my house. I don't know what happened. Now, the I-Team also found that Rosemarie, even though she had died, her name appeared to be on the active voter list. In fact, Rosemarie's signature even matched what Clark County officials had on record. And the vote was counted. Oh no, we've got fraud. It's the fraud. So now, of course, they were both registered Republicans. They both, both votes went for Trump. So when this got flagged, of course, Kirk was very, very upset. In fact, I want to show you that interview that happened. This was, again, conducted by CBS 8 News Now's David Charnes. And why don't we take a look?
That is pretty sickening to me, to be honest with you. It certainly brings up a lot of discomfort. There's a pretty exhaustive process that you go through when someone passes.
Have you started to think about how the possibilities here, if it was taken in the mail, if it was taken from your mailbox? Have you started to think about that?
I've wondered about how that could have happened.
Do you have any speculation?
No, I don't.
No wonder you don't. No speculation at all. Notice a little laugh at the end there. Oh, no, I don't have any kind of speculation. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, well, that's because you knew, you lying sack of shit. I mean, come on. Now, he added this. He said, it was disbelief. It made no sense to me, but it lent some credence into what you've been hearing in the media about these possibilities, and now makes me wonder how pervasive this is. The fraud, so much fraud. I wonder how pervasive. I mean, if it happened to me, it could happen to other people. Now, this guy, the irony, of course, is that he was spreading a lie. He was spreading the big lie about voter fraud by doing the voter fraud. Amazing. These people want it so desperately for this to be true. But they know that it's not. Deep in their heart of hearts, these people know. These people know without a shadow of a doubt, there is no mass voter fraud. They know. But they're so personally invested in it, politically invested in this, that they go and they say, well, if I can't find it happening, I'll just do it myself. And then I'll prove that there's mass voter fraud by doing voter fraud. It's such a weird, twisted type of logic. Now, Rosemarie Hartle's ballot was also one of two cited by Nevada Republicans as evidence of voter fraud. In fact, I want to show you a tweet here. This is from the Nevada GOP. Let me bring that up. So, yeah, that's the Nevada GOP talking about how, this is disbelief and sickening. That's how Kirk Hartle feels about somebody voting in his deceased wife's name. How did this forged signature pass Clark County, Nevada's signature verification machine? And it's not the only case of a deceased person voting in Nevada. Yes, the Republican Party, all over that. And then you also have this. Kirk was surprised to find that his late wife was Republican cast a ballot in this year's election, despite having passed away in 2017. The media needs to understand we are finding concrete cases of voter irregularities, that they must expose. Oh, there you go. Exposed. Totally exposed that you are the ones doing voter fraud. Jesus. Now look, a state ballot review earlier this year in Nevada had actually found about 10 possibly deceased voters had ballots cast in their names. 10. That's a report from the Office of Vital Statistics. Now, 10 out of how many millions of ballots? Again, out of the millions of ballots cast in the 2020 elections, overall, and this is from different studies, about 200 possible cases of fraud were found. That's it. And from a lot of the stories that I've seen, it's not the left that's doing it. It's Trump supporters. It's MAGA people. It's people that are literally doing the thing that they're projecting onto the left. They're voting in dead people's names. They're voting, they're voting twice in some cases and then admitting it. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is why I keep saying the right hates democracy. They do not want free and fair elections. What they want to do is they want to rig the system and they want to do voter fraud and then project that desire, of course, onto their opponents. That's why their allegations are an absolute joke. Now, of course, it would be funny if it didn't have such dangerous repercussions for our country. All right. Moving on. Go to Candace Owens. Candace Owens wants to know when we're going to bring freedom land down under.
When do we deploy troops to Australia? When do we invade Australia and free and oppress people who are suffering under a totalitarian regime? When do we spend trillions of dollars to spread democracy in Australia? Australia currently, make no mistake, is a tyrannical police state. Its citizens are quite literally being imprisoned against their will. So when do we deploy?
Okay. So, look, honestly, I watched this the first time and I thought, there's got to be a bit. Is there a joke in here somewhere? There has to be a joke in here. So I know Candace Owens, not really known for her sense of humor, but regardless of that, tends to get laughed at a lot. Yeah, weird. But I can see why. No, like invading Australia, what the fuck? Honestly, what the fuck? Now, she also said that this is tyranny, the kind that gives birth to evil dictatorships and a human atrocity. We are watching a replay of the early ambitions of Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Fidel Castro, and Hugo Chavez. Also, she added that COVID-19 had propelled the planet into a, quote, ideological and psychological global war. No, okay, here's the thing, right? What this is to try to control the virus. Do I agree that, with all of the restrictions that are going on in Australia? No. Look, I don't always agree with the ways that certain countries, even our own country, has handled COVID-19 and some of the restrictions as well. But, like, to compare it to Hitler, you're insane. Insane. You've got to be kidding me. And look, even now, some of the restrictions are actually starting to get eased because they've actually made progress against a virus. And that's good. And look, I understand lockdowns suck. They do. Lockdowns suck. I get it. It sucks to be locked down. It sucks to be restricted. It's all of that stuff sucks. I get it. I get it. But most people in Australia recognize that it was necessary to do, even if they don't like it. And again, you don't have to like it. You don't have to like doing the right thing. And in this case, you look at the results, right? And understand that despite the hardships, those public health measures adopted by the different places in Australia were mostly fairly popular and supported by the population because of the goal of trying to limit the deaths in Australia. And that's exactly what happened. Australia has had about 1,500 deaths and about 130,000 cases. So now, of course, Australia does have a lower population than the United States, which they compared, of course, to our death toll of 730,000 deaths and 45 million cases. And so, but when you look at it per capita, obviously, Australia has done much, much better in avoiding deaths and large caseloads than the United States. Those are facts. So they did lock down, and guess what? Less people died. And that was kind of the entire point. It literally does not make you the Taliban or Hitler. And again, those are more comparisons that they made. Oh, they're just like the Taliban. Oh, really? When did the Australian government start beheading people? What happened? When did that start? When did they start cutting off people's hands? Again, some of the measures, like I said, fairly draconian, right? In trying to put public health above everything else. And I get it that it is not fun, that it's annoying, not being able to go inside a McDonald's and sit inside for a cheeseburger, not fun. I want my cheeseburger, right? Well, that's not the same as decapitating people in the street. Especially considering that this entire thing is supposed to be temporary until the majority of the population is vaccinated. And so, but understand that Candace Owens is not the first right-winger to go after Australia for their COVID lockdowns, which, by the way, these right-wingers, why don't they worry about what's going on in America? I mean, are you supposed to be America first? Are you supposed to be America first? No. We have to go and criticize another country and then call them terrible and then call to invade them. Yes. So now another example here is Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz talked about how Australia is having COVID tyranny, and said that it was disgraceful, sad. He said individual liberty matters, and he had considered Australia the Texas of the Pacific. Well, of course, when you look at their reaction to climate change, it might be accurate, at least in that regard, because they haven't done a great job about climate change, even though the middle of their country literally uninhabitable as a result of incredibly high dangerous temperatures. So, but anyway, now of course, look, when it comes to individual liberty, of course that matters, right? Yeah, well, so does public health, and you've got to find a happy medium here, right? So you have to, yes, you've got to respect individual liberty, but you also have to know and do the things that are good for a whole. And so it can be a very fine line sometimes between too much restrictions and too little. Now, in America, we kind of had the opposite problem. We didn't go far enough, okay? In a lot of situations, not just when it comes to COVID, but in a lot of situations, I think we give too much freedom that harms people. For example, our gun problem, for example. I think that's the best one where, you can basically get weapons and go on shooting binges all the time. And it happens all the time in this country. And that's one example of, okay, maybe we're taking the individual liberty stuff slightly too far. We might want to put some regulations on that for the good of everyone else, And I'm just talking like common sense stuff too. And I know like everybody's super, super touchy when you start talking about restrictions, right? Restrictions. Oh my God, they're going to take our freedom and they're going to turn us into they're going to turn us into Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany, massively right wing. Just saying. Just saying. But again, this is a nuanced conversation, but when it comes to public health threats, there is some logic with temporarily foregoing certain activity until those health crises are dealt with. And so that's what's going on here. Because believe me, like, understand that COVID is not being used as some excuse for like a authoritarian one world government takeover. Okay? And so there's nothing more, that the capitalists want than to have COVID be over and for things to go back to the status quo. They want COVID to go away because they want to get back to business. They want to get back to selling things. They want to get everybody back to work and not have to pay benefits and doing all that stuff. They want normal. That's what they want. Because the status quo works incredibly well for these companies, for these corporations, and for the politicians. And so here in America, we got back to normal fairly quickly, right? We didn't have a proper lockdown. A couple of weeks went by, and the corporate bosses are like, okay, we had enough of this. Yes, we're losing money, even though they made a ton of money during the pandemic. But no, let's get everybody back to work. Yeah, let's go, get back to work, Stop paying benefits, take away the unemployment benefits, take away the additional unemployment benefits, get everybody back in the factory. Before they actually start to realize that they're getting screwed over. Oops, too late. Now we have a bunch of strikes, and it's awesome. Now people are no longer starting to accept the fact that they're getting screwed over anymore. And they're like, hey, turns out I'm being underpaid and undervalued. I'm going to do something about this. Solidarity to the workers. Solidarity. So anyway, now that's what's going on here, okay? Now, as far as America, America was criticized for bumbling our response to COVID. But a decent chunk of the country and those in charge don't seem to give a shit about the human cost. It was all about trying to get back to business, get back to the corporations making money, and get back to the status quo before people realized what was actually going on. As it turns out, when you kind of stay home and you're not working 2 or 3 uniquely American jobs, you start to think, maybe things could actually be better. So now for Cruz, the Northern Territory Chief Minister, Michael Gunner, responded to him with a statement sharing a few facts about COVID. He said, nearly 70,000 Texans have tragically died from COVID. There have been 0 deaths in our territory. Did you know that? No, he did not. You know nothing about us, he says, and if you stand against a life-saving vaccine, then you sure as hell don't stand with Australia. True. He also said, I love Texas, go Longhorns, but when it comes to COVID, I am glad we're nothing like you. That's a good response. One of my favorite, actually. So there's a couple tweets here responding to Candace Owens. One person says, I moved here to get away from her ilk. We're at 61 deaths per million compared to the US's 2,200 plus. We're doing just fine, thank you. We also get universal health care against our will, and everyone is forced to vote. The humanity! Brooke Minkowski says, I don't know if we should inflict Candace Owens on Australia. Over at the Herman Cain Awards subreddit, they call her Candace Owens because everybody who posts a meme from her seems to die of COVID-19 within 2 weeks. Oh no! Don't do that. And finally, somebody who I know is 100% an Australian, Dangerously Talented, posted this. Oh shit. They're going to install democracy on us, aren't they? Like in Afghanistan, and Iraq, and Vietnam, and all of Latin America, and Iran, and most of Africa, and Italy, and, well, yeah, you get the message. True. All true. I just have to say, Australia, from America, I extend to you my deepest apologies for people like Candace Owens and Ted Cruz. and the right wing. Sorry. Okay. Matt Gaetz. Do that story. The Australians understand the importance of applying the sanitary measures, and they don't need nobody to tell them what to do. They don't need America to tell them what to do, that's for sure. Again, results matter. All right. Matt Gaetz is having some money problems. So now the investigation into the Republican firebrand for underage sex trafficking has slowed his fundraising haul. Yes, turns out he is not bringing in that much money. And so he couldn't even afford to pay for his law license. Sad baby. The Daily Beast revealed that Gaetz had not paid the fees owed to the Florida bar, which regulates lawyers in the state. That prompted the organization to deem him a, quote, delinquent and not eligible to practice law in Florida. Oops. Oh, no. Maybe someone should Venmo him some money. Or not. Please don't. Okay. No, but here's the thing. So now when the report came out, he said, no, that's not what's happening. I have money. I have lots of money. And no, I just don't want to be a lawyer anymore. In fact, according to a spokesman, it's a career change. Is it? Well, his communications director, Joel Valdez, says Congressman Gaetz is no longer actively engaged in the practice of law. He is focused on representing his constituents in Congress, not in the courtroom. Ah, yes, the old career change. That's it. Ah, yes, that's why I wouldn't pay my bar fee. Look, the guy makes $174,000 a year as a congressman. You would think that he could afford $285. You kind of re-up that because it kind of looks bad to be noted as delinquent. I'm just saying. But then again, it's I guess the least of his worries. But okay, yeah, career change, fine. You don't want to practice law anymore? Fine, whatever, you got a job, right? Now, I'm pretty sure he'll soon have another career change, maybe, and that goes from congressman and lawyer to sex offending prisoner. But okay, anyway. Now, the funny thing is that after the Daily Beast published this story, Gaetz rushed to file a signed petition to get reinstated, paying the $265 fee plus another $200 in late fees, according to the Professional Association. So, oops. What happened? Why didn't you just pay it? Well, now, a couple of lawyers who spoke to the Daily Beast talked about this, and they noted first that it's extremely rare for lawyers to do what Gaetz had claimed, stepping back from their legal career. Instead, attorneys taking a hiatus normally pay a smaller fee of $175 to remain inactive, but still a member in good standing. Apparently, that seems to matter when you're practicing law, or just even as your professional, like how that looks on a resume or something. I mean, you would think that Oppo Research would look it up and say, look at that delinquent, doesn't even pay his bills. So how can he pay the bills of America? Oh, damn, that's a good ad. Should make that. If only I lived in Florida. No, anyway, that does kind of look bad. And so when they found it, they're like, oh no, this is bad. I need to do something about this. And I'm going to go pay $200 plus an additional $200 or $265 in order to rectify this. So now one lawyer, Daniel Olfelder, who's a Santa Rosa Beach attorney who lives in Gaetz District, says this: clearly doesn't take his law license very seriously when he doesn't take the time to pay the dues. He's not a serious lawyer. He's not a serious congressman. He's not a serious person. This is one small but symbolic example of that. I couldn't have said that one better. Good stuff. Now, the Daily Beast has also learned that the Florida bar has branded Gaetz delinquent twice in the past 2 years. So he's just not having a good time altogether. that organization actually even cut him off back in 2019 and again in 2020 because Gaetz failed to affirm that he is properly handling and protecting any client's money in trust accounts. And it turns out that lawyers must abide by strict rules to ensure that they're not stealing or misusing money that belongs to people that they represent. That has some other questions that, make me think about, what's Matt Gaetz doing? Is he stealing money now from clients? Who would hire Matt Gaetz? He's an accused sex trafficker. Now, in 2019, he also ran afoul of the professional organization's standards of civility for serving as a role of Trump's attack dog. Gaetz threatened Trump Organization attorney turned whistleblower Michael Cohen on the eve of his his congressional testimony, tweeting, "Do your wife and father-in-law know about your girlfriends? Oh, your girlfriends." When Gaetz later apologized, the group's grievance committee let him off the hook, but not before issuing a letter of advice that said his behavior was unprofessional, reckless, insensitive, and demonstrated poor judgment. Yes. Well, to be fair, when it comes to Matt Gaetz, poor judgment, middle name. Okay. Well, one more story here for y'all before we head out in the weekend. I know it's already been almost an hour. Wow. Look at that. All right. A black man who was held at gunpoint by police in Chester, Vermont during a traffic stop has reached a settlement with the town government. This is according to the Valley News in Vermont. So now the Human Rights Commission issued a report that found that the Chester Police Department had illegally discriminated against a black man named Obadiah Jacobs during a traffic stop back in 2019. So now what happened is that there were police that were actually looking for a driver from another town. So apparently there was a different black man that had been driving a car and waving a weapon around and had done so during a road rage incident. So now, according to the commission's report, Sergeant William Frank was just, doing his patrols, and he found a black man and said, "That's it. That's the guy. We're going to go get him." So now this happened 3 days after the alleged road rage incident. And so now the officer, of course, traveled behind him, followed him to when Jacobs had voluntarily pulled over, put his lights on, and then ordered Jacobs out of the car. When he was doing that, he had his weapons trained on him for at least a minute. So, look at that. Now, when Jacobs asked, "Hey, what are you stopping me for?" Because there was no traffic violation, for one. So, no traffic violation. And Sergeant Frank told him, "Well, because yesterday, the day before, or whatever, allegedly you waved a gun at somebody, pointed a gun at somebody." So wait, now your response is, "I'm going to point a gun at you." And that's, of course, despite him not actually doing anything wrong, not being combative, following all the commands, etc., etc. Again, all he did was see a black man driving and said, "Well, that's got to be the guy. He's black." Well, that's it. Now, Jacob said, No, this is not true. I didn't do anything. I didn't do this. I mean, again, it's not the same person, not the same car, nothing matched up. But it gets worse. Now, during that traffic stop, Chester Police Chief Rick Cloud then arrived. And the report said that Frank told him that Jacobs was a known player who slings dope. Now, all of this, of course, is without any evidence. There was no basis for any of those claims. So he just pulls over a random black guy with his gun out and then says, "Oh, don't worry, this guy's a player and slings dope." So now, of course, Chester officials had disputed the finding in the Human Rights Commission's investigative report that Frank's actions were based on Jacob's race. No, he didn't pull him over for race just because he was black. No, he was just doing nothing wrong. So he was black. He was driving while black, and that was it. So now the state investigator looked into this and said, actually, yeah, the Human Rights Commission's report was 100% correct. There was nothing more, there's nothing but racial animus here. In fact, here's the state investigator's report by saying, respondents' argument that the race and color was used only for identification purposes entirely ignores the record in which Sergeant Franks made assumptions about Mr. Jacobs being a drug dealer and a well-known player in Bellows Falls without any evidence. Those stereotypes of African-American men being associated with drugs and criminal activity are exactly the types of stereotypes that motivate one to find reasonable suspicion when it does not exist. So, look, 100%, this is definitely a case of racism. Cop said, well, this guy's black, therefore must be a criminal, and I'm going to find guns and drugs in this guy's car. No, he didn't. They did a search. Jacobs band obeyed all commands from the police and was there while they searched his car, didn't find anything illicit, nothing. So now Jacobs weighed in later on and he said, look, I thought I was going to be arrested or shot. I couldn't believe this was really happening. I didn't know if I had made the wrong move at that point, if I would have a bullet shot at me. It's terrifying. Now understand that this is what black people have to deal with all the time. All the time. Being randomly stopped for no reason. Being accused of criminal activity or intent without any sort of evidence to back it up. This happens all the time. And oftentimes, unfortunately, they get shot. Or arrested, resisting arrest, right? When you just question an officer. So now, at least in this case, none of that happened. That's good. And of course, after this had gone through, the town itself decided to apologize. In fact, they said this earlier on the website this month. The town of Chester sincerely apologizes to Mr. Jacobs, recognizing that no arrest or other action was taken as a result of the stop, and that no basis was found during the stop to believe that Mr. Jacobs was engaged in illegal activities. The town of Chester wishes Mr. Jacobs the best in his future endeavors, and hopes that he will feel welcome and secure whenever he has occasion to be in Chester in the future. Well, I doubt he's going to feel at all safe in Chester or anywhere else. Again, a lot of black Americans do not feel safe anywhere around police. This is the only community where parents have to have the talk that doesn't involve sex. Okay? And it concerns police. It blows your mind. They have to sit down with their kids and tell them, so this is what happens. This is what you have to do around cops so they won't kill you. Be respectful, follow instructions, and maybe you won't die. Maybe. So very likely he's going to avoid Chester in the future. And I don't blame him. So now the settlement, in addition to including $50,000 and a public apology, went on to have some other provisions in it. So now those provisions include training that covers implicit bias, as well as best practices for collecting traffic stop data, and as well as something called fair and impartial policing. As far as I know, no punishments for any of the officers involved. So, I don't think this is really going to do a whole lot, honestly. We were promised police reform. Remember that? During and after the George Floyd protests. Oh, don't worry, we're going to reform the police. We're going to reform the police. So now the reform is literally the least that they could do. A lot of people were calling for defund. None of that happened. None of that. In fact, in D.C., they actually literally increased the police budget. There was no reform, nor defunding, nothing. And at worst, you have police departments that are still being militarized. And that's, by the way, what we mean by defunding. Stop giving them military equipment. I mean, there's a report about a town in Iowa that literally has a military MRAP combat vehicle that was given to them by the Pentagon. And the Pentagon, of course, has these programs that give this military, this war equipment to police departments. What are they going to need that for? Why do you need an MRAP if you're, a little town in Iowa? What do you need that for? Now, I love their excuse for it. It's for climate change. Climate change. That's what we need, is to protect our people against climate. Really? Is that what's going to happen? Oh, climate change. No, what happens is, and actually this is related to climate change a little bit, they actually do use those vehicles and that military gear to intimidate Native American pipeline protesters. That's what they've been using that equipment for, to help these companies and protect these companies that exacerbate climate change. We're using it for climate change. Yeah, you're using it to help climate change. Not do anything about it. Not only that, but they've also been found to have used these vehicles to try to serve warrants. Come on. So no, I don't think this is nearly enough. As far as to change the nature of policing in Vermont and anywhere else, there needs to be a lot more to happen. But we have seen nothing at the federal level. I think if you want to stop these incidences, you can at least do one simple thing: get rid of qualified immunity. That's it. I mean, again, there's a lot of other things that you can do, but you can at least start there. Make it so that police officers are liable for their mistakes that could become deadly. Instead of having, of course, the taxpayer always come to end up paying for the actions of racist, terrible police officers like this guy. We could start there, but we're not even doing that yet. And shoot all the CO2. That's it. Yeah, we'll use the cannons and the CO2. It's just like nuking a hurricane. That's all. That's what we got to do. We got to nuke the carbon dioxide. Terrible. Just terrible. All right. Anyway, let's read some super chats before we head out for the day. Dango Bangle says that she's thinking about Austria? No, Australia. Doesn't Australia force their indigenous population to live in that uninhabitable section of the continent and refuse to address the ongoing genocide? Let me look into that, actually. Because I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the indigenous situation in Australia. So let me look into that a little bit further and kind of get back to you, because that is a very good question. By the way, watch Inside Job on Netflix, created by the guy who made Gravity Falls and voices. Okay, I don't know who that is, but the same guy who did the prank call. Okay, Inside Job. I'll see if I can take a look at it. And then Virginia Thomas, aka Ice Dragon, says if Matt didn't have bad judgment, he wouldn't have any at all. Yes, Matt Gaetz is a tool. True. And thank you, Marty Darno. You have a happy and peaceful weekend as well. Get that. Let's see. Anyone going on Twitch? Thanks for the new follows on Twitch. You can support us, of course, by gifting subs as well as bits and all these wonderful things that you can do. Use your Amazon Prime, of course, to help the show. If you have it, would appreciate it. All that stuff. Or, if you don't want to bypass all that, of course, you can become a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Well, that's another fantastic way to help us. All right, everybody. That said, that's all I got for y'all today. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you back here on Monday. Thank you, love you, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.
Give me a break.
There's some whores in this house.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Beta male.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.